Okay, I wanted to make something clear. I'm going to say this real quick before we move on with the songs. You know, a couple of weeks ago, months ago, years ago, I'm not sure, something like that, a couple of months ago actually, it was brought to my attention that someone had mentioned that Elvis's favorite team was the Pittsburgh Steelers. The person who said it, I'm not even going to mention his name because I have utmost respect for the person. But the actual fact of the matter is it wasn't the Pittsburgh Steelers, it was the Cleveland Browns. Now there's a reason why Elvis loved the Cleveland Browns. It's because when he grew up, he was friends with Gene Hickerson. Gene Hickerson was a guard for the Cleveland Browns during the heyday when they were champions all the time. And he blocked for people like Jim Brown, Hall of Famers. And Gene Hickerson used to send Elvis the game films of the Cleveland Browns games to his house at Graceland each week after the game. And Elvis used to watch them. Elvis was also friends with a guy who was a defensive back for the Cleveland Browns named Bobby Franklin. He was a good friend of Bobby Franklin's, who played for the Cleveland Browns. And lastly, but not least, and a man who actually met Elvis and seen Elvis and talked to Elvis and was at Graceland at one point, Jim Brown, the greatest football player to ever play, the running back for the Cleveland Browns, Hall of Famer, and arguably the best player to ever suit up in a uniform. Played for the Cleveland Browns and was friends with Elvis. And that is why Elvis Presley's favorite team was the Cleveland Browns. You know, a lot of people are like, why would Elvis like the Cleveland Browns? Well, you got to remember, you know, in the 50s and 60s, the Cleveland Browns were at the top of the heap. You know, this was before the Super Bowl. You know, the days of the Super Bowl. And the Cleveland Browns were the best. The person who said that the Pittsburgh Steelers were his favorite team, I'm not mentioning his name because, you know, like I said, I have the utmost respect for him, and I really don't want to put his name out there because he should know better. He should know the answer. I don't know why he said Steelers. Elvis liked the Steelers only because of the rivalry, because if you know anything about the Cleveland Browns, their rival is the Pittsburgh Steelers. But see, the Steelers were terrible. I mean, terrible up until the early 70s. It wasn't until Franco Harris caught the ball in midair, that was called the Immaculate Reception, that the Pittsburgh Steelers' fortunes changed, and they actually became a powerhouse in the NFL. But up until then, they were a laughingstock, so trust me, Elvis or nobody was going to be a fan of the Pittsburgh Steelers at that point. So the fact that, you know, this person even said the Steelers is just unbelievable to me. But the fact of the matter is, just so you know, I'm just clarifying it for you, the Cleveland Browns were Elvis's favorite football team. Why? Let's review now. His childhood friend was Gene Hickerson. Gene Hickerson was a guard on the Cleveland Browns. He blocked for Jim Brown and he blocked for all the other running backs on the Cleveland Browns. He was friends with Bobby Franklin, who was a defensive back of the Cleveland Browns. And he was a friend of the best player, arguably in the history of football, Jim Brown. And Gene Hickerson used to send him game films of the Cleveland Browns each and every week. That is why that is why I will tell you the fact of the matter is his favorite football team was the Cleveland Browns, period. End of story. I will argue with anybody, I don't care who it is, unless it's Elvis himself, that tells me differently, because I know the facts. The Cleveland Browns were Elvis's favorite football team. Just wanted to clear that up. That just, you guys are sitting in the room going, I don't know why he's so adamant about this. But trust me, if you knew who I was talking about, you'd be like, okay, it makes sense. I just don't like when people steer my people wrong and tell you guys stuff that ain't true. That's all. I just get highly infuriated.